Assalamu alaikum. Ukraine war, Russians start leaving Ukraine's Kherson city. Tens of thousands of civilians and Russian-appointed officials are being moved out of Ukraine's southern Kherson region ahead of a Ukrainian offensive, says the Russia-installed local leader. Vladimir Saldo said all Russian-appointed departments and ministries would cross the Dnieper River. Some 50 to 60,000 civilians would also leave in an organized, gradual displacement, he said earlier. Ukraine has called on residents to ignore the Russian move. On Tuesday night, residents in Kherson started receiving text messages, urging them to evacuate immediately to avoid shelling of residential areas by Ukrainian forces. The messages said transport across the Dnipro River would be available from 7 o'clock on Wednesday. They are told to evacuate because the evil Ukrainians are going to shell the city, one resident told the BBC, asking to remain anonymous. People are panicking because of propaganda. Russian TV footage on Wednesday showed a number of people gathering near the west bank of the Dnieper. As they queued for boats, it was not clear how many were leaving. But Ukrainian officials have questioned whether large numbers of people are actually being evacuated, suggesting that images of a crowd assembled by the river are largely for show. Serhiy Klon, an aide to the ousted head of the Kherson region, suggested that deportations theater could be acting as cover for a much bigger Russian move, a complete military evacuation from the west bank of the river. Ukrainian officials have warned that this might represent the start of a forcible deportation to Russia. In early September, the UN said there were already credible accusations of forced deportation of Ukrainian children from other Russian-occupied areas. Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, called the allegations unfounded. As part of the decree, President Putin announced 3 additional levels of heightened security inside Russia. The highest level applies to Russia-annexed Crimea and other areas near the border with Ukraine, such as the regions of Belgorod, Kursk and Krasnodar. In Moscow and surrounding central and southern regions, regional authorities have the power to introduce similar, but less severe, restrictions. Ukrainian presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak pointed out it was less than a month since Russia had held a ceremony to annex Kherson. Reality can hurt if you live in a fictional fantasy world. The head of Ukraine's presidential office said Moscow was trying to intimidate residents with fake news that Ukraine's military was shelling their city. It is a fairly primitive tactic, taking into account that the AFU do not shell cities, Andriy Yermak wrote on Telegram. The Russian-appointed governor accused Ukraine of building up for a large-scale offensive and planning to destroy the Kakhovka Dam on the river Dnieper, flooding the area. Kherson was the first major city to fall to Russian forces when they invaded Ukraine in February. However, in just a few weeks, the Ukrainian military has recaptured territory in the north of the region and pushed as far as 30 kilometers south along the Dnieper, threatening to trap Russian troops. Ukrainian officials said last week that 400 square kilometers of territory had been regained in less than a week. Russian forces have also been hit by damage to the bridge linking annexed Crimea to Russia. An explosion earlier this month has severely affected Russia's ability to resupply its troops. Courtesy BBC.